Hi everyone, welcome to my primary school midweek Chinese takeaway cook along. Just wanted to say first of all thank you to everybody that wished me a happy birthday yesterday. It was a great day, spent with people that I love, had some amazing presents, and I bought myself a new camera which arrives in a couple of days, so I'm really chuffed about that. Today we're cooking wonton soup, so we're going to take a time with this one and we're going to fold some really nice wontons. And hopefully if some of the children are watching, those that haven't gone back to school anyway, I'll show you two different wraps. Music, today's The Cure. Really wasn't sure what to put on, and I'm in a Cure mood if I'm completely honest, so we'll have this. It's just very quiet in the background, so I do apologise if my music taste isn't to everybody's liking. So before we get started, I need to run through some of the ingredients. And then we're going to have to get the soup on. Now normally when we cook the wonton soup, we would boil the wontons in a separate pan of boiling water. And purely because I'm lacking on space, I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to cook the wontons directly into the soup. Only problem is with that, it will make the soup go cloudy. So if you do want to put on a pot of boiling water and boil your wontons before you add it to the soup, by all means go and do that, and you can crack on with that in a second. All right. So ingredients. So for the soup, it's really easy. We have, in fact, as I go through it, we'll get the soup on. So I get my gas stove on. So for the soup, I have 800 ml of chicken stock. If you are making a vegetarian version, you can use vegetable stock. And this stock cube is actually gluten-free as well. So that can go straight into my pan. And just as that's coming up to the boil, I'll put that over there. I just want to teach the children a cool little neat trick. So we need to use some fresh ginger. Now the easiest way of peeling ginger, believe it or not, is with a teaspoon. So if you're at home, go and grab yourself that piece of ginger, and we're just going to take the teaspoon and what we're just going to use a teaspoon just to peel the ginger, and it really is this simple. You can see it's just coming off. And you don't waste anything. You can obviously use your knife or your chopping board, but this is a really simple way. And we'll just go around that nub there. So you can see that's about as much ginger I'm going to use, so I'm just going to stop there. But you can see how easy that was. So I'm just going to take this and put it into the bowl. Now we're going to need about 3 thickish slices, so each slice just under ½ centimetre in thickness. So we're going to go 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so we have 3 pieces of ginger which are going to go with our 800 ml of chicken stock. In that goes. Now we're going to add a splash of light soy sauce. Now if you want to measure this out, if you've got your teaspoon still, let's just start off with 2 teaspoons and see how we get on. So we're going to go 1 and 2. Now, we are going to add white pepper. I personally think that the wonton soup needs a little bit of background heat. It's going to get the heat from the ginger anyway, but if we add a little bit of pepper, it just gives us that additional heat. And we're going to add about 1/8 of a teaspoon, so a very tiny pinch, and that's just going into my soup. In fact, I'm going to add just a little bit more because I like it a little bit more spicy. Now, I'm not going to add any salt at this point. So what we'll do, we'll crack on. Now that my soup has come up to the boil, because that stock was already at boiling point to use the kettle, I'm going to turn this right down. The reason we've started the soup now is because I want that ginger to infuse into the soup. And if we did it at the end, it wouldn't have enough time. So now the ginger can sit in that hot liquid and just infuse that stock. So hopefully we've got a nice tasting soup with our wontons, okay? Right then, for the wontons. Now these are king prawn wontons. You'll tend to find in a Chinese restaurant or a Chinese takeaway, they will use king prawns and pork with a little tiny bit of pork fat as well. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cheat some texture by adding some water chestnuts and some spring onion and a little bit more ginger. So I've got about 12 whole raw king prawns, okay? To that, I'm going to chop those up in a second. I'll just prep these. So taking my 3 spring onions, I'm going to chop it in half, and I'm just going to pile that on top. Okay, now using these two fingers, I'm going to bunch the spring onions together. I'm going to tuck my fingers away and just use the flat of my knuckle as a guide. And I'm just going to carefully just chop the spring onion as small as I can. Now, because the wontons are small, I want to make sure that everything in the wonton is small as well. So when you get that mouthful of wonton, now if you've got a big mouth like me, you can put a whole wonton in your mouth. But in that mouthful, I want there to be some water chestnut, a bit of spring onion, a little bit of ginger. And so I've got to make sure that everything is chopped really, really tiny. So just take your time with this. So I'm just getting towards the end now. Now you see that at the end of the spring onion, I've got my greens. Now I want you to reserve just a few of those greens. So we're just going to take a little tiny pile and put those to one side, and we're going to forget about those, and that'll address our soup at the end. Okay? So there's my spring onion, that can go there. Now I'm going to take a piece of ginger. Now, the ginger that I want to use is probably just the end of my thumb. Okay, so I've got probably a 1-inch square piece, maybe not even that, maybe a 1/2 inch square piece. So that's about as much ginger as I want for the filling, okay? Because I want that background flavour of ginger, but I don't want to be chewing on huge pieces of this. Now very carefully, we're going to chop this as thin as we can. Now that I've got a little pile of sliced ginger, I'm just going to turn it to one side. So at the moment, most of my ginger is kind of like looking that way, okay? So I want to turn that to one side, and I'm just going to chop that again, giving me little slithers. Now once I've got slithers, okay, I'm just going to take my knife very carefully, and all this one's doing is just balancing the blade, okay? And I'm just going to start running my chopper through the ginger, and as it starts to go away, I just pull it back towards me, and then I run the knife the other way. Now my fingers are nowhere near the chopping board. I don't want to catch my fingers underneath this blade. Pile it all together very carefully, and I'm just going to repeat this until I've got a very, very fine mince of ginger. I don't know if you can see that. I've now got a nice fine dice or a fine mince of ginger. Okay, that can go there as well. Now with the water chestnuts, similar kind of thing again. So first of all, I'm going to chop them into thin slices or thinnish slices. Now the water chestnuts only have to be chopped roughly, but you still want small pieces. So again, I'm just going to run my chopper or my knife through until I'm getting small dices of water chestnuts. Again, when I bite into this wonton after it's cooked, I want that little tiny bite of water chestnut in there, but I don't want a big chunk of it because I still want to be able to taste the king prawns. Okay, I am happy with that. Now the last thing we're going to do is chop our king prawns. This is why I've done it last, because obviously it's going to mucky my board, and I didn't want to have to bring out another chopping board. Same thing again now. So I want to chop the king prawns so they're not completely into a mush, because obviously when I eat the king prawn I still want to know what I'm eating. So first of all, I'm just going to roughly chop these king prawns. So just watch your fingers, and then we're going to start running the chopper exactly the same we did with the ginger and with the water chestnuts. So you're going to have some tiny pieces, some more chunks, and hopefully when we're doing our wontons in a second, we'll be able to see little chunks of king prawn in there. Now of course, if you have a blender, you can blend this. You will find with a blender that you will get a mush rather than chunks of king prawn. But again, you know, it's still the same, I guess. So I like a few chunks of king prawn in mine. Right then, so I have my spring onion, my water chestnuts, my ginger and my chopped king prawns. This little pile of spring onion here is going to be for the topping. So I'm just going to take my king prawn mixture, or chopped king prawns even, and I'm just going to pop them into my bowl over to this side. Now I'm going to add my water chestnuts along with my ginger and the spring onions, leaving the ones that I kept to one side. And at the same time, because I'm going to use this chopping board, I'm just going to scrape my board off a little bit, make sure it's nice and clean so I can work on it. Okay, now to this I'm going to add, there's a teaspoon of corn flour. So in that goes. Okay, followed by about a teaspoon of sesame oil. And there's the sesame oil. Followed by a tiny pinch of white pepper. A little squidge. So about a teaspoon of soy sauce. Now not too much. I don't want this mixture to be too wet. So a little bit of soy sauce. And lastly, a tiny pinch or a tiny smidge, about a teaspoon of rice wine. Now use what you have. I kind of like raided my cupboards this morning and just thought I'm going to put everything in it, because Chinese cookery is all about feel. Okay, the recipes that I write and the recipes that you follow are there as a guideline. They're not set in stone. Okay, obviously when I wrote the recipes, you'll get the exact outcome that you expect. So if you imagine your wonton soup that you're eating at your Chinese restaurant or takeaway, it will have a certain flavour and taste. This will taste just like that. And again, you can tweak it out just ever so slightly with different ingredients that you've got, okay? I'm gonna grab a glove for this part, and I'm just gonna massage all of this ingredient together. Now I want to keep massaging this so the corn flour actually starts to bind the mixture together. Now in a Chinese restaurant or takeaway, we would slap, so I would pick up the mixture and throw it into the bowl. Now what that does, it creates like a springy kind of texture. My bowl isn't big enough for that, so I'm just gonna massage it for now. And you can see it already just starting to clump together as the corn flour is binding with all of the mixture. Okay, so we have king prawns, water chestnuts, ginger, spring onion, and a myriad of flavourings, creating this fabulous wonton mixture. Now wrappers, I've not made my own wonton skins. Maybe if I've got time one day, we'll go through how to make these, okay? So I'll just show you this actually. Now this is the brand of wonton skins I'm using, okay? They're called North-South wonton skins. If you go into your Chinese supermarket, you will find these in the freezer section. Not many of the Chinese supermarkets will keep them in the fridge because they go off, which is perfect actually, because if you let them thaw out maybe by about half, you can then separate it because you get a massive stack normally. Now I've been using these for a little while, so every time I do a demo doing wontons, out comes the pack and I take a few out, okay? So what we want to try and do now, we're going to separate a skin and I'm going to lay it flat in my hand. So imagine that my hand is in front of me and the diamond shape is pointing away, okay? I'm going to take a spoonful of this mixture and pop it dead centre into the middle of my wonton. I'm then going to take the back of the spoon and dip it in whisked egg, which this is just whisked egg. If you don't have whisked egg, you can use water by all means. So first fold, okay? So this time I'm going to take the tip of the diamond that's in the closest to me, and I'm going to take it to the tip that's the furthest away from me, okay? So I've just created like a little triangle. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to place the wonton into my left hand, and I'm just going to pinch the wonton skin, enclosing that mixture as close as I can into the centre of that package, okay? And at the same time, expelling any air out of that. Now from here, this is just a little bit easier. I'm going to take the back of my spoon again, and I'm just going to wet one of the corners. Okay, so I've got this long corner, I've got the long corners, and I've just wet one of these with a bit of egg. All I'm going to do now, using my thumb, I'm just going to put a little dimple in the back side of this wonton. This corner then goes underneath, and this corner goes on top. Okay, creating, it's just stuck to my finger now, creating that shape. It's like a dumpling shape. Now this is, and that was the shape of the gold ingot. Okay, so we'll do that again.
I'm going to put about a teaspoon of the filling into the middle. Okay, I'm going to take the back of the spoon, and I'm just going to paint the two edges furthest away from me. Okay, fold the point closest to me to the point furthest away from me. Hold it in my left hand, I'm going to pinch as close as I can to the mixture, squeezing out the air and sealing the wonton wrapper. Okay, so that gives me that shape there. I'm going to lay that onto the chopping board. I'm going to wet this, well, my left hand corner, take the right hand corner, and literally place the right hand corner on top of the left hand corner, creating this dumpling shape. Okay, so I'm showing the camera up there, that was all. So that's what it looks like.
Okay, so there's the first one. The second one is the easiest one. Now this is the one that my dad used to do. So my dad's first job was in a little noodle bar in Shuttlecock, Hong Kong, which borders China. And he used to tell me that he used to put the wrapper in there and literally just squeeze it to make like a shuttlecock kind of shape, I guess. So again, starting off with a teaspoon of the mixture, I'm just going to place that into the middle. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to gather up all of the sides together and just pinch. Okay, and all I'm doing is just pinching around the top of that mixture. Okay, now it should be, the mixture should be sticky enough to help it stick. And there's our wonton shape. So that's the ones that you'll probably see when you go to restaurants and takeaways. It's the easiest one to make, okay? So again, we'll do another one of those. I take the mixture, I take the wrapper, sorry, place it onto my hand, take a teaspoon of this mixture, pop it straight in the center. If you want to, you can put a little bit of egg just around the sides. Okay, just pull up all the sides together and then just squeeze it. So you're squeezing around the top of the mixture. So you've got a little round ball with a little tail on the end. There's another one. Put the soup back on. Now, I don't want to put the wontons into this until it's boiling. Okay. So this is now just coming back up to the boil. So what I'm going to do is take my spoon, give it a quick stir, not that it needs it, and I'm just going to taste for seasoning. See, I think that's about right. So it doesn't need any salt, so I'm going to put this to one side. Doesn't need the salt. So once I've got a rolling boil, so obviously you can't see in here, I'm hoping the new camera, so when I edit this you'll be able to see into the pan, you'll see that now that I've got kind of like pretty much a rolling boil. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop in my wontons. So number one, and again, normally you would drop these wontons into boiling water rather than the soup. That's it again. The reason being is that it will make the soup go a little bit cloudy. So I'm just dropping my wontons into the soup. I'll give them a quick stir, just make sure they're not sticking on the bottom. And we're going to let those boil away for about 3 minutes and they'll be cooked, okay? It's only king prawns. King prawns don't take long to cook. And the wrappers, again, won't take very long to cook. Okay, off goes the heat. I'm going to take my ladle. Let me grab a couple of these wontons and some of the soup. We'll get different shapes. Let's grab another one of those. The last thing we do, guys, as always, is that we season with a little tiny bit of sesame oil. You would allow between 3 and 5 wontons per portion per serving. Take a little pinch, a little tiny pinch of spring onion, and we just put that on top. And there we have it. I can't really show this camera, but later, next week when I do the edit, you'll be able to see it from this camera. There we have it. My wonton soup, cooked in a very hot studio. Kind of in lockdown, kind of not, kind of coming out of lockdown. Hope you've enjoyed, guys. Please give it a go. Full details will be on YouTube in a week's time. If you have missed this one, the recipe is also in my Chinese takeaway cookbook, which is just over on my right shoulder. And I shall see you tonight at 6:30 p.m. For my Wandering Dragon. Have a fantastic day, guys. I'll see you at 6:30, okay? Bye.